Check, check. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Channel Zero. We're live, and we're happy to be here today to talk about things outside the realms of Ground Zero. Of course, the Ground Zero radio show that I do every night, weeknights from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. You can catch that on Aftermath.fm, and, of course, sign up for Aftermath.media, where you can get all of the archive shows that are specifically targeted to you. And, of course, once again, we are behind the freedom to listen, freedom to hear, and the freedom to have sane discourse, which, of course, is something that has been taken from us or will be taken from us if the elections go in. Well, it depends on where the elections go, I guess. They're trying to control that and coerce people into believing that if you vote one way, all of the pain and suffering that we've been experiencing in 2020 is going to go away. And I don't believe it's going to go away anytime soon, because it seems to me that things are just falling apart. And when we speak of politics, or when I talk about something called fringe or parapolitical talk, the discussion leads to ponerism. And ponerism, of course, is the study of evil, the demonological realms that certainly are pushing the power into a lot of the political figures. And when we see this demonological hold that seems to be on this country, or seems to be in politics right now, we speak of we ask ourselves, what exactly are citizens' rights in this situation? And we think that an election is supposed to suffice and protect us from what Joe Biden called dark winter. And we've talked about dark winter on Ground Zero, talking about the tabletop exercise that was first introduced back in the early 2000s, where they were talking about pathogens, diseases. At first, it was some fungal disease, and then it evolved into the novel coronavirus. And, of course, it was supposed to happen during Black Friday, and it was supposed to shut down the holiday. And we are facing that with Thanksgiving approaching and with Christmas approaching. They are shutting down the holiday. And I remember back when I used to complain about I guess you could say every year they would drag out the war on Christmas, saying if you don't say Merry Christmas, you're declaring war on the holiday. Well, I said, well, you're only declaring war on the holiday if they don't allow you to have the holiday. And so they've declared war on holidays. They've declared war on humanity. They've declared war on get-togethers. And they've separated us. I remember reading 1984, and in the book 1984 by George Orwell, there was a part in there, I think, where Winston was describing what kind of life he was living. And what he was saying was that there was no dancing, there was no walking down the street, there was no get-togethers or church gatherings. They eliminated those. The Ministry of Love, they basically eliminated all contact with human beings. And what is most disconcerting to me is that I'm learning more and more about this dark winter that Joe Biden has talked about. I mean, I talked about it, where we're seeing infrastructure being destroyed. We'll see shutdowns, blackouts. We'll see, internet problems. We'll see shutdowns, and we'll see what I would call intentional blocking of certain information. And what this is it's a scorched earth policy, certainly. A scorched earth policy is basically when you want to destroy everything and rebuild it again, and rebuild it in another image, another new age, if you will, or an age of reason that is in the image of those who wish to be in control of us, the oligarchs. And it's, ironically, the endgame solution that is a game changer, which I find interesting. I mean, when you look back at people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, for example, and he wrote many political strategies in his books, and I remember reading them as I was first starting out doing Ground Zero, and I realized that these endgame strategies are always there as probably last resort strategies in order to control the people, because it's about controlling people. In fact, I think it was Zbigniew Brzezinski who said it was easier to control 1 million people back in the old days. Now it's far easier to kill 1 million people rather than to control 1 million people. Meaning that no more controls. The fear is what is going to control you. The idea that you may die is going to control you. The body counts that they continue to push on you is enough to have everyone terrified and frightened about the future. I mean, how much longer, and I mean this, how much longer can we sustain this fiction? And I know that you get criticized for saying that COVID-19 is a hoax. I don't believe it's a hoax. I believe it's there. I believe it's real. But what I also believe is that it has been used, and certainly used, to, I guess, exploit the very fears that would destroy our constitutional republic. And the constitutional republic has become, in my opinion, it's become a myth now. I mean, I don't know how long this is going to go on, but the color revolution, as far as where I'm at, is on pause, and the election is going to kick off, I think, probably the biggest mass nervous breakdown you'll ever see in a country. I mean, look, we're looking at days before the 2020 vote. It's basically happening in a time in history where this entire country is in a dark mood. And every time, you try to point it out, people say, "Oh, the doom and the gloom, it's all going to be, finished after the election." But, we see that there are a lot of people out there that are low on hope. They're running on spiritual empty. They've come to, I guess, their final solution. And the thing that's funny is that when you lose hope, you have nothing else to lose. And that's why I worry that no matter what happens, it will be the wrong choice, it will be the wrong outcome, and it's going to bring disaster, at least to a number of people who are seeing the extremism going completely off the rails here in this country. I mean, nothing is certain. I mean, I could be saying that all of this is going to happen, and then immediately nothing happens. Or in a lot of situations that I deal with when I talk about the future, when I talk about what can and will happen, there are a number of people that will say, "Well, I woke up today and nothing happened to me." Well, of course, it doesn't affect you. If it doesn't affect you directly, then certainly you're not going to think that there's a threat there. I mean, I remember when I was talking about the situation in Portland where we had a number of situations where we had burning down buildings, attacking and destroying buildings. We had Ben Swan on the show just yesterday saying that Washington, D.C. is already boarding up its businesses, and they're doing so because of the fact that they're seeing that there's a potential for civil war or at least a civil breakdown in this country. And I think that people need to be prepared for this. They need to be prepared for shutdowns. They're going to be they have to be prepared for communication breakdowns. And the idea that things will be censored, the idea that things will be closed down because worry for violence, stores shutting down early, not being able to get food in the house. And we've been saying time and time and again, and it's not all about making money. It's about warning people. And that's why I tell people, preparewithgroundzero.com is the place to go to pick up your food. It's inexpensive. You can have them in your pantry. It has a 25-year shelf life. It's something that I think we all need to look into. I know in my house, we actually buy it. We have it sitting in our pantry. It's there to supplement the food we buy at the store. And I tell people when you go to the store, buy 1 can of food for you and 1 can of food for your pantry, meaning that you're not going to tap into that unless you absolutely have to. And these are things that you can do, little things to do to prepare. Also have supplements on hand that you need to certainly have in order to keep healthy. We actually work with getthetea.com to get those, and we offer 10% discounts. We're trying to help everyone be prepared for this future. I mean, and then, like I say, nothing's certain. Threats of rumors of upheaval. We no longer live in our grandfathers' and grandmothers' America. This is not business as usual in the United States. It's business as usual in the apocalypse, and this is exactly what we're seeing here. I know that for many people, this has been a gut-wrenching ride. It's like a roller coaster that doesn't seem to want to let up. We look at right now, we look at that we are experiencing what I see is the calm before the storm. There really is not anything happening right now. I mean, the weather's changing. It's getting cold again. But again, we talked about dark winter, that it was an early winter for a lot of people, snow falling in the country well into September. We saw temperatures plummet here in the Northwest early in the year. I mean, usually we see temperatures like this in January, and right now we are looking at 38, 27, lower temperatures at night, super cold. And I just think that when we look around us and we see how things have changed, it's almost like they're in control of these changes. We have no control over these changes. We can only report them and warn you of what is happening. It sounds like it's some conspiracy theory, and that's the whole point, right? It's parapolitical. It's less than normal. It's beyond normal. So, I mean, that's what para means. It means abnormal or at least out of the ordinary. And this is certainly something that we're dealing with right now. Now, I know that many Biden supporters are believing that a Trump victory would literally be the worst thing that could possibly happen to our country. But at the moment, most of them are quite confident that Biden will win. We're looking at polls that say that Biden will win by about 5% or so. But, there are a lot of Trump supporters out there. They're absolutely convinced that we will plunge into a horrifying socialist abyss if Biden wins the election. But for now, most of these people are convinced that the polls are wrong and that Trump will win, actually, or will put out another victory in November. But, we're just a little bit below a week away from Election Day. And most Americans that really care about politics are right now pacified because they believe that a positive outcome is right around the corner. And I would say that I can't help but think that this is a setup. It was a setup like 2016 was. I mean, those who are casting their votes by mail and unfortunately posting their ballot choices on the internet are making a circus out of this process, certainly. And they're hoping that all of the clowns are going to play along. But the clown car has already parked. We've unloaded the clowns, and they're making their debut. We live in clown world. And I've said this many times. We live in clown world, and it just seems to me that Americans need to understand that in a circus, sure, we're entertained, but it only lasts for a little while, and then we finally get back to normal and realize that, the pitch that we received, the pitch of, that things are going to get better. I was watching Joe Biden this morning on CNN, and it just seems that his message continues to repeat over and over again. We follow the science, not the fiction. We base our campaign on facts. We're going to base our administration on facts. We're going to mandate masks. Wearing a mask is patriotic. I mean, people don't listen to the idea that what they're pushing is a medical dictatorship. It's all about health. It's all about Obamacare. It's all about COVID-19. This is something that certainly is important. I think it's important to discuss your health. It's important to discuss health options. But when they make this political, when they turn science into a political football, we start seeing strange things happen. I mean, remember back when the times before Hitler, where eugenics processes were politically correct, and they pushed these political processes, or they told you it was okay to smoke a cigarette, and pregnant women could smoke cigarettes. I mean, this is where we are right now. We're in this moment in time where we really need to pay attention to where we place our vote and where we think spiritually. I know you want to follow the science, but your spirit and your soul is very much important right now with this election. I'm Clyde Lewis, and you're watching Channel Zero, and we'll be back with more. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Clyde. Listen, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing these days. You know, you can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killings, lawlessness, and mayhem. We also have to be concerned about power outages, epidemics, and quarantines, along with natural disasters that break supply chains and cut off store access. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come, and the crescendo will be quite painful. However, I want to focus your attention on what you can do to survive. Priority one, in times like these, you win when the system falls apart. If you know me, you know I fully endorse My Patriot Supply. They're the only source I personally use and trust to get through these tough times ahead. You should too. Right now, you can save $100 off a 4-week emergency food supply of delicious, nutritious meals the whole family will love. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com to get your food kits today. The future is uncertain, and I urge you to prepare by going to preparewithgroundzero.com and get ready now. That's preparewithgroundzero.com. Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Newsifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media. Welcome back. Channel Zero. I'm Clyde Lewis. You know, when we explore what's going on, I tend to think back to a movie called Groundhog Day, where every time, if you remember, Bill Murray played the part of the lead role of this guy he was a weatherman who continually lived the same day over and over again. And it reminds me of that old saying by Mark Twain where they say, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And I wonder if we're going to see a rhyming of 2016, if not in spirit, at least in reality, because if you remember back in 2016, the big national polls were dead wrong, and President Trump, Donald Trump, pulled out a close victory when the mainstream media had assured everyone that it was inevitable that Hillary Clinton was going to win. In fact, I had been correct in all my predictions for president, except this one, last one, the 2016 one. And the reason why is because I guess I got beguiled by the media, and I was convinced that they were programming everybody, which they probably were. They were programming everybody for a woman president. And you notice all the TV shows had a female president, all the movies had female presidents. We're pushing the matriarchal order when we look at characters that are being put into science fiction movies like Star Wars, and Captain Marvel comes to mind, and of course Wonder Woman. You look at the pop culture, and it all is about the woman president or the woman leader or the woman who struggles to get to the top. And I think we're seeing that in Kamala Harris. I think they're prepping us for that. It's obvious that this is something that they certainly want, something that and I would say that many indications would tell me, and I've been in the business for about 35 years. It tell me that I think the big national polls may be flawed in a lot of ways, and it's not that I support Donald Trump. I just think that objectively, you start looking at how he may be doing significantly better than the mainstream media is telling us. There's this enthusiasm gap that we discussed this last night. It's called the enthusiasm gap. And that is that we have all of this enthusiasm, the enthusiasm generated by all the rallies that President Trump does, and then the less enthusiastic Joe Biden, who stands there all stoically telling us that, President Trump's bad, President Trump's bad, President Trump's bad. And that's all his campaign is about, basically saying, I'm not Donald Trump, Trump sucks. And I've always said Trump sucks is not a strategy. And it's been the strategy for the Democratic Party this time around. And it was also the strategy for Hillary Clinton, only that one of the things the reporters wouldn't tell you, which I thought was interesting, and they finally came clean, was that when they'd go on these trips and follow Hillary Clinton around, they didn't see any Hillary Clinton signs on lawns. They didn't see the support or, once again, the enthusiasm that's provided for this type of candidate. Now, we get plenty of people demanding that you register to vote, demanding that you do this, demanding you do that. And what that is basically the lack of confidence with their own political party. When Nancy Pelosi is looking into the 25th Amendment, it's because she has no confidence in the system. She has no confidence in her candidate. And I remember when that first happened, I thought to myself, well, she's going after Donald Trump again. But no, what was going on is that they were evaluating whether or not they can utilize the 25th Amendment against Joe Biden, because, of course, that would mean that he would have to sign off on being president, that he would be incapacitated, not able to do it, and they would hand the Oval Office, they would hand it over to Kamala Harris. I think that we're looking at a lot of people who are deeply hurt or feel deeply betrayed, and this is why I think that when they get to that point, when they go and they do their vote, or they go and they see how this all operates and happens, people are going to start lashing out if they feel they've been betrayed. And you don't want to be anywhere around that. You're going to want to protect your family. And that's been my biggest, I think, one of my biggest mantras lately is to say it's all about protecting you. It's all about protecting your home. It's all about having the right kind of tools available so that you don't have to leave your home, that you can sustain yourself, eat the foods you eat, drink the water you drink, make sure it's potable. And also, like everybody else, it isn't a bad idea to arm yourself either. You never know whether or not you're going to be attacked, or because, there's been threats from Antifa or Black Lives Matter. They've been threats going into neighborhoods and basically causing trouble. I mean, I think everyone realizes that this national nervous breakdown is in the wings. And it's just that most of those who deeply care about politics assume that it's going to happen with the other side. That even if the victory is on a side, they could actually say, well, we have done this again, we have won again, and they certainly will. Vengeance is something that people seem to forget about, or vigilanteism, which we've seen a little bit of with regard to those who have been shot or killed during these rallies. And of course, there are so many people out there that are entirely convinced that every part of what is going on with this election is evil. And then again, we go back to what I said earlier about the demonologically controlled, poneristic oligarch, or the oligarchy that seems to exist. Doesn't matter who's sitting in that throne of the Oval Office. That oligarchy from outside of this country is what is ruling. The idea that we have not elected Davos, we have not elected the World Economic Forum, we have not elected the Bilderberg groups, and all of these outside influences of the world government is what is waiting in the wings to come in and govern us, because they believe that we are ungovernable, and it appears that we are ungovernable. This is the important thing to remember. You can vote all you want. You can You can go and think that you're doing your duty as an American citizen, but there are people outside of Congress, outside of the Supreme Court, that are making decisions that certainly are influencing maneuvers and the machinations of what is going on behind the scenes. And I think people need to remember that. I think day after day, the government, in many respects, especially the government that we look to in Washington, always find a way to commit crimes against the citizenry. And it grows more energy because Americans are not informed of those crimes. It becomes more egregious, more treacherous, more tragic. And day after day, the American people wake up a little more to that grim realization that they have become captives or prisoners of their own making. And I think we need to stop this. I think we need to look into this. I no longer can we say that we are as free or more free than any other country out there. I mean, the world is becoming a gulag. The world plantation is the objective. We're being pushed, we're being prodded and watched by twitchy, hypersensitive, easily spooked armed guards and what we call social justice warriors that are there to knock on your door and tell you, wear your mask, 6 feet separation, be like George Orwell, 1984. We're here to enforce the laws of love. We're doing this for your own good. I mean, and in the process, you need to remember this, that even though they're taking these provisions or these precautions, I've always said, we complied and thousands, hundreds of thousands died. The death toll is still mounting. The carnage that is happening is heartbreaking. The public faith, or the public's faith in government, to do their job and to ensure the blessings of liberty, these things are not happening. They are not protecting our freedoms. The freedoms of this country are deteriorating. Think of that when you go to the polls. Many of you have already voted by mail. And, you know, it doesn't take a weatherman. It doesn't take a scientist or a genius to realize that a storm is brewing. The perfect storm is brewing. Clouds are gathering. The wind begins to blow. And we have this almost palpable tension that seems to be, you know, we're waiting for those frayed nerves to be tap danced upon. And they are damn close. It could be the death twitch nerve. It could be any nerve at all that's tap danced, and immediately everything that we have fought for, everything that we believed in, will be decimated because of the fact that they want to reset this country. And that goes for your freedom. Reset freedom, reset everything. And the warning signs are everywhere. They've been indicated in the movies we watch, the TV shows we watch, the books we read, the internet pages or the internet stuff we read, Facebook, Twitter, all of it. And that is why now it's all coming so quickly. I mean, the upcoming election and its aftermath will undoubtedly keep the citizenry divided and at each other's throats. So they'll be so busy fighting each other that they will never manage to present a unified front against tyranny in any form, a unified front of tyranny that is being basically planned now. It's been 30 years planning stage of pushing this new reset, this socialist reset, this global plantation. They call it the new normal, but what it really is, it is the new order, the new world order that they're willing to push on us. And I know that all sounds like cranky conspiracy theory, but it's obvious. I mean, if you were to go to a magazine shop and you were to find Time magazine, they have a Time magazine that is entirely dedicated to the world reset. And what it is it's the mainstream's version of this. We talked about this months ago, and we gave you the indications as to what they're planning. They want to get rid of what are called legacy services or legacy, I guess you call them legacy habits and what we have in our country, legacy institutions like police, legacy institutions like owning your own vehicle, legacy institutions where you go to church. All these things want to be eliminated by the World Reset, the World Economic Forum. As I said, we do not elect Davos, but Davos seems to be making the decisions. I mean, you can't have a Republican form of government or a Democratic one, for that matter, when the government views itself as superior to the citizenry, when the government outside our own government views itself as above the citizenry, when it no longer operates for the benefit of the people, when the people are no longer able to peacefully reform their government, that they have to take to the streets, when government officials cease to act like public servants, when elected officials no longer represent the will of the people, when the government routinely violates your rights and perpetrates more violence against the citizenry, allows for criminal activity to continue in the streets. When we see this, and when you see the judiciary acting as courts of order rather than justice, and when the government is no longer bound by the laws of the Constitution, we begin to see the deterioration of what we have fought for, the deterioration of this country itself. We have, unfortunately, we've become ungovernable, as I have said. And I think that this has been the conspiracy, not a theory, but the conspiracy for so long. It has been on the agenda to make America become a rogue state. And, and that would be, you appear, think of how we appear to the outside world. Think about how we appear rogue to the outside world. And that with that appearance, we have a world governing body that can move in and reset everything into a new form of government, something that we don't even recognize, something that I'm sure we'll feel that is better for us because we need that handout. We need that help. But the goal is to keep you scared, isolated, and demoralized for a purpose. Only a beaten nation, only a sick nation would stand for what is coming. And that is what I'm worried about. And that is what I want to present and what I'm trying to present for you today. There will always be those comparators. All they're going to do, what they want to do is they want to maneuver their new normal as the only way to save the United States, merely throwing in, or actually throwing on the altar, this country for this new age of reason, their version of the new age of reason, pretty much. When push comes to shove, the United States will be bullied into doing things that they wouldn't think of doing. I would say that they're going to go back to proposing that we sign the Paris Agreement, that U.S. foreign policy and domestic policy is going to merge with the World Economic Forum. And I've read, you need to go to the World Economic Forum's website and talk about and discuss with your friends and your neighbors about the Great Reset. Because that's what they're calling it, the Great Reset. The program takes every, I guess you could call it, New World Order premise. And they want to use, I guess you could call it, radical left ideas, and they want to reimagine it. They want to reimagine what left and right is. They want to reimagine what conservative and liberal is. They want to reimagine what it means to be an American, what it means to be a world citizen with sovereignty. Becoming a world sovereign, being free. They want to reimagine capitalism, and they want to put it on a leash so that they can have this new communist model be the world model for this world plantation. And this is why I think it's very important. We talk about this before the election, just days before the election. Thank you for joining us tonight or today on Channel Z or Channel Zero. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more. Keep it here. Don't go away.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. Listen, I want to talk to you very frankly about the increasing civil unrest we're seeing these days. You know, you can't turn on the news without hearing about more riots, violence, looting, killings, lawlessness, and mayhem. We also have to be concerned about power outages, epidemics, and quarantines, along with natural disasters that break supply chains and cut off store access. Sadly, I think the worst is yet to come, and the crescendo will be quite painful. However, I want to focus your attention on what you can do to survive. Priority one, in times like these, you have to make sure that you have enough food to eat, if and when the system falls apart. If you know me, you know I fully endorse My Patriot Supply. They're the only source I personally use and trust to get through these tough times ahead. You should too. Right now, you can save $100 off a 4-week emergency food supply of delicious, nutritious meals the whole family will love. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com to get your food kits today. The future is uncertain, and I urge you to prepare by going to preparewithgroundzero.com and get ready now. That's preparewithgroundzero.com. Welcome back, Channel Zero. I'm Clyde Lewis. You know, last night I called my producer, Ron Patton, on the phone. It was late. We just finished the Ground Zero show. And I said to him, I said, you need to find a copy of Time Magazine. You need to go look high and low. And apparently magazines are hard to find unless you go to magazine specialty shops. And the reason why I asked him to find a copy of Time Magazine is because I wanted to use it as a prop, or at least an object, to show you that they have basically devoted an entire issue of Time Magazine. If you find it at the store or what have you, take a picture of it or whatever. They have an entire magazine. You know, it's not like, oh, we're featuring this. An entire magazine devoted to this Great Reset because they want the people to see what the plans are. It rolls in their sustainability goals from the United Nations Agenda 2030. Now, many people are still hung up on Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is Agenda 2030, okay? And when I hear people bring up Agenda 21, I go, come on, guys, let's move forward to the new plan. It's Agenda 2030. And it seeks to reform the global economy into what the World Economic Forum founder and executive chairman Klaus Schwab says, a stakeholder capitalism. And it's been his vision for 50 years. Now, he sees it supported by global elites like Prince Charles, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, and a lot of multinational CEOs. There are a lot of people, these major companies want to, this is like the coup that FDR had to go through with all these Nazi businessmen, or businessmen that leaned towards Hitler's philosophies and said, oh, by the way, we're going to take over the presidency. And they attempted to do it with an army. Now they've learned they can't do it with an army. They do it with the bloodless coup. They do it with 25th Amendments. They do it with impeachment. They do it, and this is something that I think people need to understand, that this is how the dynamic is working. It has nothing to do with business as usual in politics, and people still pretend that they're going to vote and it's going to mean something. It doesn't mean a damn thing anymore. Really, it doesn't. It's just some ritual that we do to give you that feeling. It's security theater. Give you that feeling that you're in control when in reality you're not. Because you look at people like Klaus Schwab and what they're proposing and who inspires them. People like Greta Thunberg and others that certainly, everybody says, oh, you're picking on a little girl. No, when you decide that you're going to use the wisdom of a child instead of your own wisdom to think about what you need to do with your family and your life, I think there's a problem here. I think there's a problem. There is a disconnect, and I don't care what party you're in. It's not smart. It's not smart to do that sort of thing, to keep thinking that a child is going to tell you how to live your lives, and child telling your child to leave school. This is not good. This is not good. Now, we've looked at scarcity economies before. We've seen two modern economies that have been molded in private ownership with essential government control. We have China. We have Nazi Germany. You can even look back at communist Russia. Unlike the Soviet Union, there was a never complete government takeover the means of what are called what is the production in these two economies. Still, there's no escaping. The central planning of the government is to modify and dictate operations. That is the goal, and how they dictate those operations is how they see fit to put government in their own image. And I've been reading the World Economic Forum's website for some time, and it's impossible to summarize in a small 1-hour TV segment with you what they have proposed and what they're planning. I've talked about it on my radio show before. But the bottom line is that these oligarchs have plans for you. They have plans for you and your future and your family's future. The fact that Time magazine is showcasing the Great Reset tells me that it's time for everyone to do their own homework. It's time for everyone to go to the World Economic Forum page and read what they're trying to do. The global elites are using this pandemic as a pretext to make major changes to the global economy with the intended effect of reducing the United States' dominance. You know, we have been very happy being that country that everybody loves, that everybody envies, that everybody wants to be a citizen for. That is no more, okay? You know, people are fighting like hell to get to this country. No, they're not. Not anymore, they're not. And I think, you know, all of these old ideas and myths we tell ourselves about the United States, we need to wake up and understand that those myths are non-existent anymore, that we need to understand that people know what's going on. They have seen it. I've talked to people, Cubans. I've talked to Cuban drivers who tell me they see the same thing happening here as they saw in Cuba. I lived in a civil war in Argentina. Same thing happening. Here's what happened in Argentina back in the 1980s, except they were at the close of their dirty war. They were getting ready to have a real election again where the coups were stopping, where they would put people in jail who were trying to overthrow the government. But I guess, you know, going back to what I said in the beginning of this program, we're living in tumultuous times. We have political theater that is polarizing. We have a pandemic providing ample cover for a rollout of what they call the fourth industrial revolution, and that is, of course, with the Great Reset. The oligarch class asks us to play along and overlook the fact that all of this smartness that they say they have rests on a foundation of continued growth, fossil fuel expansion, child labor, toxic waste, and space pollution. They basically give you all of the ugliness and say, we will eliminate that ugliness. We will be your saviors. We are the Lord and saviors, and we're here to save you, save your government, save you from yourselves. They demand that we overlook the insatiable energy requirements needed to run the augmented reality Internet of Things illusion, the 5G, all of these things that we're being told we need. 5G is for machines. It's not for you. They do this for the machines to run smoothly. They want the Internet of Things to run smoothly. They want your smart meters, your smart houses, your smart neighborhoods, and your smart cities all being controlled with the United Nations in mind, all being controlled with the World Economic Forum in mind, Davos, of course, leading from parliaments in Belgium and other places in the world. See, they want us to put our minds and understand, they want to put our minds in the idea that there's the existence of vast data centers that are cooled 24/7 with all the water, and they're watching you, and they're monitoring you, and they're using their data against you. And it seems like this is what is happening. They have outdone themselves propagandizing the young to actually cheer this on. And that seems to be, you notice how it was the big deal, like I said, Greta Thunberg cheering on this, saying that, America sucks, we're going to do better. We have this idea to get rid of our capitalism, replace it with global capital. And what that global capital is implementing the green solution or the Green Deal. And that's always been in the back of the minds of all that want to take over and change. And I mean, it may not be what you want to hear before the election, maybe not. I mean, but you know what? It has to be said. And I'm saying it right here because I think it's important you know what is going on. The war on terror has been swapped for pandemic preparedness. You notice how the war on terror is kind of like non-existent because they found something scarier, and that is a disease that you can't see, a disease that they can manipulate. And that is going to work out just fine for the World Bank's efforts to grow their vaccine in pandemic bond markets, how they're going to be making money off sickness. I mean, we all pose as threats to the state's security simply by living in a human body, treating a human body like it's a robot. And having robots actually police you, and that means programmed robots that used to be human beings They're like some pod people that you put the pod under the bed like an invasion of the body snatchers. This is where we are. We have drones, we have facial recognition cameras, wearable sensors, biometric tracking, tracing, all of these things that sound like the Stasi back in the days of the Eastern Blocs and communism. We are going to be nothing more than track and trace free-range humans in a society that has lost its humanity, being forced into a peasant type of class with everything provided at the end of your hand, right here, your cell phone. And you're always being given the lies, you're always being given the cover-up, the censoring of all the warnings of what is to come, all at the end of your phone. You know, again, back to Orwell, there were these telescreens that Winston had talked about where all the information from Big Brother was sent to you via telescreen, and people were glued to their telescreen, they exercised by their telescreen, they checked their health by their telescreen, and most of them didn't go out. Most of them were fine. Most of them were okay with living with this lie that the government loved them. And, you know, when you're given the big lie, and the big lie, of course, is this cover-up. They're saying there is no cover-up. And the censoring, I mean, Joseph Goebbels, he stated this. He says, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield people from the political, economic, or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. Well, yes, the truth is the enemy of the state. Getting the word out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter is a lie. It's basically, if you look at the truth, it's a casualty. It's a casualty of this war, this invisible war with a disease, this invisible war between you and those who want to govern you outside that of Congress, outside of that of a duly elected president. You know, if you read some of these dystopian novels from Huxley to Orwell, there's also a book called It Can't Happen Here. If you read a lot of Ray Bradbury, go back to Aldous Huxley back in the 1950s, and he was talking about technological progress and actually how, for some odd reason, you know, you look at technological process, drug use, all these things kind of pushed us backwards in terms of our humanity and our relationship with nature and other people, how we treat other human beings. The very technology we glorify as an example of our advancement is now being used by the totalitarian regimes to imprison us, to keep us imprisoned to our own, with our own ideas in our own echo chambers. And it has happened slowly, it's happened methodically, and it's been happening over decades, over generations. Generation after generation have entered the government indoctrination centers. Basically, we call those public schools. And they are taught ignorance. They are taught obedience to the state. And this is indoctrination. It's been reinforced by ceaseless propaganda that we see. It's all injected into the brains by media conglomerates doing their bidding of the state. Once again, at the end of your hand comes this propaganda. And I'm not saying throw your cell phones away. I'm not saying be fanatical or strange. But we have to understand, are we directing this, or is this directing us? Because we have control. I remember my father taught me to drive. He said, you need to be aware of the fact that you're in control of the machine. You can't allow the machine to control you. And this is the way I feel about cell phones, computers. I mean, the dystopian use of disinformation, false narratives, blatant lies, and propaganda by the totalitarians and authoritarians. This is something that has been a product of the continuing deep state for so long. And I know that calling it the deep state is, they say, well, that's a Trumpism. No, the deep state's been around since the times of Kennedy. It's been around since the times of FDR. We have seen these controlling oligarchies. We've seen these secret groups behind the scenes simply capturing and hijacking the narrative, hijacking corporate media. It's turned a blind eye to the truth as they have acted as accomplices in the coup, in the co-conspiracy. This is something that I thought, and I've noticed, and last night we talked to Ben Swan about this, we have noticed that anymore, the media has been nothing more than a mouthpiece for the Pentagon. With people, former CIA agents, former FBI agents, they're the ones that are basically sitting in those chairs giving you the news. It's like state-run media. And again, the technological platforms are beginning to censor it. And hopefully, we're getting through to you by doing TV shows like this, Channel Zero. I'm Clyde Lewis. Thank you for watching, and we'll be right back. Have you noticed that well-known and controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored on the internet by corporate and political interests? This is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio. And in order to counter against the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digitalized playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring videos, movies, audio clips, archive shows, ebooks, e-magazines, documents, and so much more. Our news aggregator, Newsifer, provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We'll also be hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Into the Paranormal with Jeremy Scott and The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Aftermath.media has a social media platform along with a chat room to interact with many of our listeners. And about once a month, you can chat with me about anything. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are now available. The monthly subscription for Aftermath.media is only $9.99 a month. This includes exclusive access to our library and Ground Zero archive podcasts. If you're just interested in having access to the archive podcast, it's only $4.99 a month. So sign up today by going to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, I'm Clyde Lewis. Welcome back to Channel Zero. You know, I have been looking at many things that this election is going to mean for all of us. And much of humanity, much of us, all of us, seem to be, we don't want to get involved with opening our minds. A lot of us don't want to. And a lot of us have been duped into an irrational fear that any of us, regardless of age, health, or whatever, is at the mercy of something that is a brutal beast, an invisible brutal beast, more lethal than any other danger we've ever confronted. And that's why I get cynical whenever I hear that this is the biggest election of our lives. And this just might be the biggest election of our lives because there's so much at stake here. But the most important thing is how people are reacting, how people reacting against government, people reacting against our Constitution, reacting against people who want to be patriotic, being told that they're selfish if they're patriotic. And I just think that when I'm looking over what I'm seeing today in the news, and, you know, we're being told that it's not right to analyze. It's not right to think for yourself. Instructions are instructions. We give you the instructions, you follow the instructions or else. And that's the thing. I mean, if you are the type of person that wants to be controlled by big government, then yes, you are the one that's applauding the lockdowns. You are the ones that are applauding the social distancing. You are the ones that have forgotten history. And that's why I think that when we look at what is happening here, it just seems that governments, if we let them go wild, which we have with our form of government right now, we start seeing destructive policies. We start seeing power grabs, which we were just talking yesterday about our governor. She's extended the emergency here in Oregon for another 60 days. And I say to myself, you know, for a person who has not enforced the laws in this state, she certainly feels good about cashing the checks that she gets with these emergency extensions that she loves to push. And I would say that, you know, no one takes the time to think that this is mindless. This is where mindless people treat information as if it's context free, that what you get is what you get, that you got to follow the instructions regardless of your circumstances. It's interesting because, lately I've been telling, I take Lyft to work every day. I take Lyft because I don't like driving downtown. And it's odd that every time I get into a Lyft car, they have their windows cracked, and it's like 20 degrees outside, 30 degrees outside. And I say, could you please roll up your window? And they say, well, they tell us that it's safety, that we have to leave the windows open for fresh air. And I says, yeah, but let's be reasonable here. Put things in context. Put things into perspective. We have cold air going on that's making me cough. Would you please close the windows? And see, that's the thing. When you're in a state of mindlessness, when you become a zombie for these instructions, you're following the orders you're following, you don't take responsibility. You blame it. You pass the blame. You don't take responsibility for your mindlessness. And that's the thing. We're told, well, Trump's responsible for COVID deaths. No one questions that. And they should, because it's like me saying to my wife, you know what, you're responsible for why I feel like garbage. You're responsible for why I'm not taking care of myself. It's like blaming your partner for your problems. Your partner is not your problem. You are your problem, and you need to work on your own problems. And so that's the thing, is that I just wish that people would stop this mindlessness, that they would start thinking for themselves and understand that, Huxley, going back to what Huxley had said, he predicted that the controlling oligarchy would use technology to teach people to love their servitude. They use chemicals and drugs, and people would unthinkingly believe that they are told by their government and media mouthpieces that if they do the bidding of the government, if they follow instructions are instructions, then the oligarchs will bless you with wealth. They'll bless you with whatever you want. And that's the thing, is that that's what they want to do. They want to say, oh, we're going to give you compensation. We're going to give you that check. We're going to give you this. And then they hold back the check. Did you notice how that happened with your stimulus checks? Oh, we're giving you the stimulus checks. And then when they say, oh, we're going to give them to you again, somebody says, oh, no. We're not going to do that. We don't want the president to have his signature on these checks right before the election. That would make him look good. See, and that's the thing, is that the goal of the ruling class, and if you remember reading all these books that talk about dystopia, the goal of the ruling class is to keep people from thinking. And mostly they want you to oblige to what they do. They want you to be an apologist for what they do, because for you and for a lot of people, thinking is very hard. It is hard because you've got so many things on your plate. But uncomfortable truths that are given to you, a lot of the time, either they're listened to and they're acted upon, or these uncomfortable truths are too much to bear. And that's for the satiated masses. A lot of them don't want to hear the truth, and many of them want to believe that the truth is conspiracy theory, and they continue to use conspiracy theory as a pejorative, saying that it's all about lies. But there is a minority out there. There is a minority who want the truth. And many of you who are watching this, I tell people all the time that what I give is honesty. I try to be as honest as possible. And in that honesty, I hope you find the truth. And I hope that if you decide to ignore the truth, if you decide that instructions are in instructions and that you follow instructions to your own fate, then I hope you're understanding that there are consequences. There are consequences to believing the big lie. There are consequences to not being prepared. There are consequences in writing off the warnings. Look, if you prepare yourself, it's kind of like Pascal's wager. If you act as though there's a heaven, then when you get there and there isn't a heaven, you don't lose. If you go to heaven and you meet with God, then you're on God's good side. So that's the way you should be thinking with regard to preparedness. Either prepare and nothing happens and you wait for the next thing to happen, or you just remain helpless, mindless, and unable to accept the truth. And I want to tell you this. Facts don't cease to exist because we ignore them. The Mother Nature does not bend to good intentions. Facts don't care about your beliefs. Facts don't care about your politics. Facts don't care about who is the experts talking about them. Facts lead you to the truth. Honesty leads you to the truth. An immense cover-up of facts over the last 10 months or so have been sad, really. I mean, and as we approach this so-called historically important election, it boggles the mind of every critical thinking person on the planet as to, what comes next. They don't even want to imagine it. I don't even want to imagine it. It's like a nightmare. I don't believe that either side is going to accept the outcome of the election and will treat the victor as legitimate. They'll say, well, he's illegitimate, of course. And once that mindset gains control, only violent conflict and evil can result from this. The myriad of potential outcomes are too vast to comprehend right now. And I know a lot of you don't want to hear this. A lot of you don't want to, say, oh, all it is doom and gloom. But here's the thing. Unconditional surrender to instructions are going to be demanded by the hidden hand. We need to have the hidden hand. We need to have the upper hand against the hidden hand. That's the point. If you want to know who thinks they have the upper hand, perhaps it's a moment to pick up the New Time magazine and read the sanitized version of what this global reset is. At least you'll have a piece of the puzzle. But in order to understand, you'll have to open your mind and realize that the target in all this is you. They expect your servitude as the winter gets darker. I'm Clyde Lewis, and you've been watching Channel Zero. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we'll be back with another presentation. Thank you so much. Take care.